would you say is the center of our city? What for you is the exact center of Mahtomedi? Maybe it's Triangle Park downtown. Maybe it's up a little further, City Hall and the library. Maybe it's the farmer's market or the community garden in the summer or the hockey rinks in the winter, the endless winter. My dog would say that it's Catherine Abbott Park on any morning, rain or shine, at 7 a.m. For some of us, it might be the community meal at St. Andrew's on Thursday night, maybe the only hot meal that a family's going to have that week. Or maybe it's the food shelf at St. Jude's, which is a lifeline between survival and disaster for a while. For some of us, it is the real center of town. What is it for you? For me, the center of our city is any kindergarten class at Wildwood School on any morning. Think of the 5-year-olds, actually 4-year-olds, who will enter our new building in the fall. They will come, as they do now, from Willeney and from Delwood. They'll come from newer houses on East Avenue or older ones like mine, built 100 years ago as a summer cottage for somebody, still completely drafty in the winter. They'll come from families who are lifelong residents of Mahtomedi and Minnesota and America. And they will come from families who are new to every one of those places, who call it home here just the same, with just as much authority. And they will speak, as they do now, a beautiful bouquet of languages. It's a wild mix at Wildwood. And for me, that is the center, the class of 2027. So think of that for just a moment. 2027, who will graduate into a very different town than the one we live in now. What if we embraced right now and wholeheartedly the changing demography of our city and celebrated the greater ethnic and cultural diversity that these children will surely experience, and in fact that they are living right now? What if we were to partner maybe with Century College and or with our local congregations or through community education to engage this pluralism gladly and imagine our bright future? What if we could gather, all of us and others not here this morning, in the way those children gather every day, in small human-scale circles within which we could get to know each other really well across town, across all our differences of faith, politics, ethnicity, economics, ability, and experience. I think of households with children and of elders living alone. I'm thinking of longtime residents and brand newcomers, homeowners, renters, neighbors at St. Andrew's Village. We live in such isolation sometimes from our closest neighbors. As other speakers have said, we're cut off by busy lives, by busy streets, Stillwater Road and Mahtomedi Avenue, which are no longer residential roads at all. They're highways, and therefore they're not just conduits anymore, they are barriers. Sometimes we are cut off just by loneliness, or by invisible walls like class. Wealth falls so unevenly in our city, as it does in every city, but we have abundant resources here. Everybody has something to contribute to enrich everybody else. A few years back, when the recession was really starting to sharpen its claws and dig into us, all of us, small groups called common security clubs were established in a number of cities all across the country. These are the circles that Lisa Cook was describing to you. Some places they were called resilience circles. They're groups of 10 to 20 people, and at that time, when they were first started, they were people who had been downsized or laid off. Some were facing eviction or foreclosure or houses underwater. All of them were anxious in an anxious economic time. Folks came from every rung of the financial ladder, from CEOs to all the rest of us. And the ostensible purpose then was networking, but clearly what brought people together was a deeper need and an older folk wisdom that despite all our separate circumstances, it's good to remember in a major crisis like a Great Recession that we're all in this thing together, and that this thing was, it still is, larger than any person or household. It's hard to talk about money. There's an open source guide online to gathering these circles with tips on getting the word out and conversation topics and how to facilitate a 2-hour conversation. It's very simple. You need a warm space, about 20 chairs, a coffee pot, and the will to show up and tell your story. We ran a circle like this in our congregation in the summer of 2008. It was open to the whole community, and people came. They came kind of tentatively, but they came, and they found that even in hard times when they felt fragile on their own, they were strong. They could share everything from lawnmowers to recipes to dog sitting to wisdom and ingenuity and support. Most importantly, stories. People differed politically. This was Mahtomedi. So every week we spent a little time kind of playfully reclaiming a common language. We redefined words that were hitting us in the face every day in the news. Words like fiscal responsibility, security, worth, net worth. How do you talk about the worth of a person whose self-worth has plummeted? The people were strangers at first, but not for very long. 5 years later, some of these people are still meeting together because the relationships are essential. This is an old-fashioned idea. It's very retro. It's like Facebook, but it's face-to-face. It's in person, exactly like this gathering today, which would be very different if you were just experiencing it online. What if we took that old-fashioned model and we gathered groups not in response to some crisis necessarily, but just to know each other, whether we've lived here for generations or a few years like me, or only months or only weeks? What if we invited anybody who wanted to come, single adults, families, couples, to meet in a group once a month for 1 year to share a meal and share ideas and friendship? What if we heard from each other across our differences, perceived or real, our borders of religion, politics, money, sexual orientation, race, whatever, heard from one another what old words like commonwealth actually mean to us? Groups could meet at first in public spaces. We have so many beautiful ones for a town this size, so nobody has to vacuum or get their house ready or feel ill at ease. We could meet in the schools or the district ed building or the library or Century or rotate through the congregations. And in fact, the congregations could organize this. They could start in public places, but I know they would move soon into kitchens and living rooms because that is the heart of our city. In 2008, our circles were cast in the roughest time in the recession, a fearful time, and the conversations were hard and risky and moving. But we could cast circles now on a whole range of new topics with the same premise of mutual trust and respect, topics exactly like the ones we're exploring today. Once a month, 1 year, you'd meet with a little group of people you would never meet otherwise. You pass them in festival, you never talk. Together we could ask, what is happening to the lake, to the aquifer, to this beautiful, rare habitat? What if we became a community nationally recognized for our commitment to sustainability? What about affordable housing and mixed income neighborhoods? And what about the Piccadilly site, just lately in the news, and apartments for seniors? What is that? What about public transportation? We might not want to bring the streetcars back, but what about a variation on that theme fitted to the 21st century? And most importantly, what are you going through? What is it like for you, for your family, to live in Mahtomedi, call it home, here and now? What do you believe in? What do you hope for? Why is this place your home? I'll close with a small story. I work on Maple Street in a building that sits on a 4-acre lot, most of which is protected wetland. There's a bottle dump there. It's a place where years and years ago, people in the neighborhood were tossing old dishes and cups and pottery, lantern globes, there's all kinds of stuff. And every spring, when it finally thaws, stuff rises to the surface out of the swamp, and every year it's something different. I have found perfect milk bottles and prohibition bottles and colored glass and pieces of pitchers and bowls with so many china patterns that women set out on their tables. I love finding this stuff, these fragments of past lives, and wondering who owned them, who held them, all these buttercrocks and flower pots. In my mind, I try to piece the stories back together. I think of these community circles, circles of resilience, whatever you call them, as a way of piecing together the narrative we hold in common as citizens of one little town. We all hold separate fragments, histories, hopes, strengths, opinions. What if we came together in deliberate groups to describe the community we are and the one we are becoming, the one those kindergartners are going to graduate into in the blink of an eye? Everybody at the table. I'm thinking about interconnected circles of community, from households to neighborhoods to the fragile ecology that holds all of us and the future that we are holding together. It is our common good, our commonwealth.